Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is...
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And we have a very, very special guest tonight, Dr. Peter Munns. But before I get Peter on and introduce you to Peter, a little bit of admin, some really exciting news. The Loving Life 2020 channel, which I've linked in the description below, hit over 40,000 subscribers tonight, so I'm really thrilled with that. Thank you all for your support. And the main Loving Life channel, this channel is close to 80,000 subscribers, which is great. Let's really make this thing rock and roll, shall we? Now, Dr. Peter Munns is a highly respected individual who has gone out to bat for the poor and for what is right. Peter wants to give a message to church, civil society, and captains of industry. We will be talking about current events in South Africa, as well as the Solomon Project, the Ark of Compassion, Peace Commission, and South African Christian Chamber of Business. Now, late last year, Peter took on the Durban City Council over their handling of the Ark of Compassion in 2005, which resulted in over 100 people being made homeless in Durban. And here is a short video from the High Court action in 2019. Let's have a look at that before we bring Peter on.
Dr. Peter Munns, I'm Chairman of the All Christian Ministries Church, the plaintiff in this case against the Durban City Council. We've waited 17 years to get justice and truth. We had to serve papers on the plaintiff and also reported with the court. It's Tuesday, 10:30 on the 19th of November 2019. The court case is going to be from the 25th to the 5th of December, and it's in connection with the claim for 528 million for closing down the Ark on the 17th of May 2004. We hope and we pray for justice, and we seek restitution, justice, indemnity, and restitution. We pray for this in God's name.
Now, of course, that is not the other Ark. Just to be clear, this is a South African project, has no affiliation at all with that failed Ark project in the United States of America. Now, just while we're talking about high courts, I was sent this image earlier today, which is quite extraordinary. This is how documents are filed in the High Court in Pretoria. Have a look at that. Just lying on the floor. These are High Court cases. That's how they treat the documentation. Quite extraordinary. Okay, let me get Peter on. Hi, Peter. There you
Hello,
are.
Scott.
Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise, Scott.
I love your backdrop. You're obviously using that Skype feature.
Yes.
It looks fantastic.
Well, we can change it. There we are.
Now you look like an academic. Now,
Yeah, well, you don't need a camel or a donkey to go to Jerusalem anymore, Scott.
that's true. Just don't take South African Airways.
Oh yeah, or TAP. Take another plane, eh?
Yeah.
Portugal.
Or Indonesian Airlines. No, that's more our sort of side of the world. Now, Peter, to get things going, tell us a bit about your background.
Well, I've had I would say, an exciting journey of learning and discovery. Life is an adventure. I've had a very interesting life. My mother and father, my father was from England, from Preston, and I can trace my family right back to 1086, 9 years before the Crusades.
Wow.
On my mother's side, I can trace it back to 1630 with the Dutch, and then the Germans came in 1660, and then the Huguenots came, French came in 1685, the British came 1795 to 1820, the Jews came here in 1828, the Indians came here in 1860, and the rest is history.
Right.
But it's nice to know our history, and also good family. My mother actually passed away. She was knocked down by Indian bus when I was 5. And that was quite a traumatic experience in my life.
I bet.
It affected our whole family. I had 2 brothers and a sister, and it devastated my father. And my father was a diesel mechanic. There was no white privilege. There was no kind of privilege at all. It was just very, very hard work. I became an apprentice electrician on the Durban Corporation at a young age. Never got through to any university, but it was, opportunities were there, Scott, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I think to be able to. There's no free cheese in life, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, my mother's background as well with the, with the Dutch goes right back to Moordspruit and Blokrans, and right back to the Battle of Blood River. So, while there's no future in the past, we need to learn from it to shape the future. And I think that was my ethos going through life. Just move on, make the best of it. I went to a good school, Glenwood, and then from there served my time on the Durban Corporation, finished up and then left there to go to Stewart's and Lloyd's, a sales engineer, became sales manager, went to Vestibel Engineering, became marketing manager at a young age. And I was course qualified in the Army, 16 years in the military, citizen force, because we had no choice in those days, Scott. Every white person had to go into the Army, and we were defending our borders from Cubans, Russians, East Germans, Chinese.
Right.
And defending people of all races. So that was quite a challenge, but I think we survived it, and also I think that we learned a lot from it.
Just to be clear on that war in Angola,
Yes.
South Africa wasn't fighting the ANC; it was fighting Cuba and Cuban forces.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Yeah,
when the ANC talk about their fighters, their fighters really never were involved in the war. We were fighting communists.
Well, most of these freedom fighters, they spend a lot of time overseas, East Germany, Russia,
Yeah.
China, London, and also after Nelson Mandela was found guilty of treason in the 61 Dravonia Trial, one of the longest trials that ever went on in South Africa's history. I think it was Thabo Mbeki that went to Sussex University at that time. His father, Governor Mbeki, was in prison, Robben Island, and that the death sentence was commuted to life, and there was payback time. Nelson Mandela promised Thabo Mbeki he'd be the next president if ever he got into the top job, and he kept his promise.
Right.
So I think it was very good to learn a little bit about history, but I've always had an interest in history and also the background, the history of South Africa. And after we'd done 16 years in the military, it was Pickwater and F.W. de Klerk that turned around and said communism died at the Berlin Wall in November of '89. And I said, well, I've just sacrificed 16 years of family time, job opportunity and education opportunities, wearing a uniform, defending this country.
Right.
And there we have leaders who are telling us communism is dead. So I sat down for 4 years and I wrote a book called The Final Protocol, The Truth About South Africa, the early history of communism, right back to the SACP being established in 1921, the ANC being established in 1912. They joined hands in 1955, and the Congress of the People gave us a freedom charter, equal opportunity for all, but that was just another promise.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yep.
Sorry, you were telling me about your life. So you fought in Angola, and then what happened after that?
Well, I think after the border wars, we came back. We went back to, we knew what was happening. They had a referendum in 1992. There were a lot of innocent people killed. 80,000 innocent people were killed.
Shocking.
In the townships, intimidation,
Yeah.
necklacing.
Oh, that was just shocking.
And we know the whole history, and this whole freedom struggle. We didn't see too many of the ANC people on the borders, and the reality is that the referendum gave the ANC political party that position in government.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there was also a lie from the pit of hell, because the first 100 names on the ANC list in 1994 were members of the South African Communist Party, and also COSATU.
Yeah.
And Judge MacDonald ruled in 1995 that had you known that you were voting for a communist by voting for the ANC, that government should never have been recognized.
Yeah.
So I think that people should know their history in terms of that. But we have a communist shadow government, the SACP and the COSATU.
We were deceived.
Well, absolutely. And Judge MacDonald in the Cape Town High Court, he ruled against it. But none of the political parties have done anything about it. And I think that the ANC moved into position, and they basically took over.
Right.
But a lot of the decision making is made from the Tuli House.
Right. Now, I got a comment in here from one of our people following the video or the live stream. Hey, suck my socks. Excuse, but that's his username. Suck my socks.
Okay.
He says, please ask Peter if he remembers Dave from Pat Ackott days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dave Pope. Hello, Dave.
I think that's who this guy is.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so let's get back to the history. South Africa, the state of the nation pre-1994 period. Why did such a wonderfully successful country fold like it did? And yeah, just tell me.
Scott, I think what should have happened, I mean, the British were great administrators, whether it was in India, was Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. What the British did was that they were very good at putting in infrastructure. That was it. Roads, universities, clinics, hospitals. Everything worked. And it was absolutely, you can't knock it. And what they did was harness the energy of the people, whether it was India, Hong Kong, China, or South Africa. And where the government made a mistake is that they should have utilized that. They should have utilized that infrastructure and improved on it, because they had all the opportunity in the world. It's called ineptocracy.
Right.
When you handed everything on a plate, and then 26 years later, we see the crisis that we have in the country today. So, but everything worked, you know, and the schools, the administration, it was successful. And it comes down to leadership at the end of the day. We need capable leadership, people with wisdom, people with the skills, experience. And I think that this is the learning curve after 26 years. There's a lot of good people in the ANC. This is not about against the ANC as a political party. And you know, we've got no gripe with any of the parties, except for the silence. But the bottom line is that the ANC, the leadership has failed and let the country down.
Don't you think one of the key reasons they've failed is because of the incredible level of blatant corruption that's taking place within the ANC? And I'm talking at the top levels, and the fact that the courts never bring anyone to justice.
Well, you know, Scott, the bottom line is that after 26 years, we've learned a lot. The judiciary system, and that is why we need a separation of powers, because the judiciary is controlled by the ANC, as well as the IEC as an organ of state, a Chapter 9, very much like the CRL Rights Commission. But that is exactly the same situation that happened in Zimbabwe. If you have no separation of powers between the executive, legislature, and judiciary, then you've got no justice, and you just don't see it. And then the political results are predictable. And we say that we've got 7 pillars of ignorance, basically, in government today. The ideology is communism, tribalism, socialism, fascism, corruption, insatiable need for greed. The nepotism is jobs for pals, party loyalty. And we just had the president turn around this week and say it's more important to unite the ANC than to take care of the people or the humanitarian crisis that we've got in the country right now. And we've also got incompetence, we've got mismanagement, we've got sloth and laziness and all the other deadly sins. But the number one is unaccountability.
Yeah.
1997, the ANC brought out, as they also brought out the abortion bill. There's no sanctity of life. 300,000 unborn children have been butchered every single year since 1997. Nelson Mandela brought that out. And then they also brought out the Vital principles, 11 principles that clearly state that there's going to be service delivery. Vital in Lesotho means people first, but we don't see that. And the first principle, the most important one, is consultation. So where's the consultation been? The consultation is being done at Latuli House.
Right.
With the communist shadow government. So the ANC is really, the cabinet of 28 is mainly there as a consultation. I think that they make all the decisions. There's a lot of quid pro quo. There's a lot of organization. The 2017 elections, when within the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa got the top job, but Dlamini Zuma got the job of COGTA, Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, and that put her in charge of the disaster management for the COVID-19.
Which has been a disaster in itself. Now, you commented that Ramaphosa said in the last couple of days it's more important to unite the ANC than to look after the people they represent. Now, I just want to put a bit of meat to the bone on that, because I think it's about over the last weekend there was a fracturing within, and it came out quite visibly in the ANC, because Ramaphosa said that they were going to now make people at the top of the ANC accountable when it came to corruption. And apparently Ace Magashule was not very happy about that, and they had words over a Zoom stream, and that actually came out in the media over the weekend. And it's been very disturbing that they've now set up a committee to actually investigate corruption at the highest levels of the ANC, and the people who are investigating this corruption are the ANC themselves, high-placed members of the ANC. That's like getting a wolf to, investigate a pen full of little chickens. It will just go and it'll just destroy everything, and obviously never say anything. And what are your views about the way the ANC are handling this issue with corruption by just putting their own little mates in there to investigate?
Well, it's relevant, Scott, what you're saying, because in 2015, South Africa saw xenophobia not at its worst, but a repeat of 2008. And what happened was the king, Zwelithini, was being accused of inciting and calling to arms the Nguni people, the Xhosa, the Zulu, the Swazi, and the Ndebele people.
Right.
And I went to see the king, and I asked him if he was a warlord, and he denied it. And I believed the king, and that was the beginning of writing a peace accord, which is really demanding law and order. But the interesting thing, going back to your question, the Commission of Inquiry was established by the Premier at the time, Senzo Mchunu, and he called another commission, and the king was found not guilty, basically. But getting back to these commissions of inquiry, we got the Zondo Commission that's cost 800 million so far.
And done nothing.
Without a prosecution. Yeah. They also established, when Cyril Ramaphosa took over, they established the Anti-Corruption Tribunal. And 3 years ago, the National Peace Commission, which we established, approached the Anti-Corruption Tribunal. Well, the Anti-Corruption Tribunal was only started last year, but we had approached already the Department of Justice and said that we need an oversight committee for the Zondo Commission. And then we went back again and said, we will participate, you need to consult with us. When I say us, we're talking about the business chambers, we're talking about civil society, and what we realized was that we had to create a voice of public opinion. The church was silent, irrelevant. The business community and all the business chambers throughout the country were also silent and tolerant and indifferent to these high levels of corruption. And the corruption level, you're only limited by your imagination. More than 3 trillion rand has been stolen in 10 years.
Absolutely incredible.
We're 4 trillion rand in debt. And the government at the moment want to steal 8 trillion rand in pensions.
That's right.
So the public sector, and we're talking about nurses, we're talking about policemen, we're talking about, policemen and teachers and nurses and people who are paid very, very little amounts, Scott. But if you have a look at the situation, 30 billion rand is spent every year on 27,650 middle and senior management in the ANC.
In the government, yeah.
30 billion with 27,650.
Well,
if you had to take, yeah.
I was just reading a report yesterday from an economist who was saying that South Africa is losing 2 billion rand a month, 60 billion rand a year in shortfall in tax collection over what they're spending. And he says it can't continue.
No, it's not sustainable, Scott. If you have no socio-economic growth and development, the bottom line is that crime is the enemy of the economy, and it's the enemy of the tourist industry. Mm-hmm. Corruption is it's a crime against humanity, but it's also a crime against the poor, the destitute. And if you've got no infrastructure and you've got no service delivery, that's a crime against your country.
Right.
And the bottom line is that those are the issues that need to be addressed.
I totally agree. I have to say that we have a resident priest on this channel. His name is Dan Berryman, and he is absolutely ropeable about the South African Council of Churches and their total silence about what's going on in South Africa. And I'm sure you would agree with him that when it comes to things like black economic empowerment and these racist laws that the ANC have got in place, the silence by the South African Council of Churches is extraordinary when you consider pre-1994 they were the loudest advocates against apartheid, and now what you've got is basically black apartheid against a white minority group. What are your views on the role of the South African Council of Churches in this whole thing?
To be honest, I think they passed their sell-by date. They were very, very active in signing the November Rustenburg account to have Nelson Mandela released. Mm-hmm. They were very busy in London. They were extremely busy. You had Tutu, Huddleston, Shakani, and Bussack, very, very involved in the activities within the South African and also World Council of Churches. We know the origins of that. And they basically put the government into power. But it defies all logic that suddenly they're coming out of this coma out of hibernation. And they only seem to be a little bit concerned about this level of corruption during the COVID-19 period. What's happened in the last 26 years.
Right.
But that's not just doesn't apply to the World Council of Churches. The 75,865 churches in this country. There's 190 different church denomination groups that are not only racially, culturally, ethnically, politically, and doctrinally divided, but I think it's, and with all due respect, we've got the largest database of churches, and I've really spent a lot of time with a lot of these people. And I think a lot of it is ignorance. With all due respect, I think that the church should have done something more positive, and there should have been, a united church a long time ago. There should have been a voice, and that was the reason why we established the National Peace Commission. We established the South African Christian Chamber of Business in July last year, and then we established the National Peace Commission and launched that in October last year. And that's very interesting, Scott, because this could have only come from God.
Yeah.
That we were prepared with this before COVID-19.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I find it interesting that we talk about the various church groups, and the man who really just comes out center is Desmond Tutu, whose foundation just last week slammed the corruption going on at the ANC. And he was joined by the Nelson Mandela Foundation and other groups as well. Now, his role before this, I'm talking about Desmond Tutu, in keeping quiet about these policies. I mean, basically when Tutu was front and center with that transformation stage in 1994, the whole thing was a rainbow nation. Now, he's been very quiet about this whole thing about race-based employment, triple B, double E, which is basically restricting employment to white people, and then black economic empowerment. And he's been totally quiet about that. Do you find that surprising?
No, not at all, because he was also part of the main grouping in the World Council of Churches and everything else that put the government into power. But what has happened is that a lot of these church leaders have played an active role in that whole function. The Nelson Mandela Foundation, the Cathrado, they were very, very active. They were activists in the apartheid era. And then they suddenly became quiet unless they had their own agenda. But in terms of doing something constructive for the country and standing up against the corruption, the mismanagement, the poor leadership, the breakdown in the, the newspapers and the media have been replete with it. The people can't turn around and say, oh, we didn't know. Last year, only 18 municipalities out of 256 had a clean audit.
Yeah.
That's in the papers, Scott. So you can't turn around. So the silence, and that is where, I come across, and I think with 16 years in the military, I come across a little bit kind of military gritty, you know what I mean? People see me as like negative rants at times. So,
no, I think it's...
it doesn't really worry me, because at the end of the day, people don't really like the truth. You need to shoot from the lip, and especially with church leaders. John 8:32. Where's that? Truth will set you free.
Yeah.
But I'm living according to my DNA. My family coat of arms says "Omnia ad vincit veritas." Truth conquers all.
Yeah.
And but it's a kind of righteous anger. It's anguish.
Right.
I feel anguish at the genocide on the farms. You can't call it anything else but
exactly
terrorism. Call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? Don't sugarcoat it and say, oh, it's just another opportunist crime. We've got everything. I mean, and I take my hat off to AfriForum. I tell you what.
Yeah.
As a civic organization, they've done a lot, but unfortunately, it's been very, very restricted. Let's say and I spent 5 days at Bella warm baths. So I've had these boss parades with them, and they could have done a lot more than building an Afrikaner university. We've got to move away from this Afrikaner folk and Buddha folk and even Nazi folk mentality. I've been accused of being a CIA Mossad spy. No, I mean, honestly, the absolute extreme right is no better than the radical left.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you that the short time that I've known you through our chats is that you clearly have determination and direction. You know where you're going with your life, which is fantastic, because that's how things get done.
Yeah, Scott, I think the most important thing that we owe it to ourselves. There comes a time, when one must take a position that is nothing, it's neither safe nor it's politic, nor popular, but we must take it, because our conscience tells us to do it, and it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Martin Luther King said that. And our time is now. Start where we stand and don't back down. There's no retreat, there's no surrender. What must we be worried about? We've got 30 people, public servants, cabinet ministers, controlling the lives of 70 million people. Are you kidding me?
It's crazy.
And I want to go run off to Orania.
Now, no. I just while we're talking about the NCCC,
yes.
Now, I think Dlamini Zuma and Ramaphosa have a totally different hidden agenda when it comes to the regulations they're bringing in with the lockdown and the harshness of the lockdown. And I think Ramaphosa let the cat out of the bag when a few weeks ago he talked about the economy is doing just swimmingly well. And what's going to come out at the other end is the black economic transformation. And I read that to be he's using this lockdown to destroy the small white businesses, make them all bankrupt, and then after the lockdown they'll probably throw billions of rands, which I don't know where they'll get it from, but to their mates who will set up BEE businesses, this is theoretically, to replace the white businesses that have been lost. And there comes your black economic transformation that he's talking about. What are your views on that?
Well, Scott, number one, they brought in equity bills, they brought in land reforms, they brought in affirmative action, they brought in all sorts of things.
All these divisive policies.
It hasn't been easy for minority, and not just whites. We're talking about minorities.
Yes, exactly.
It hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of nepotism. It's jobs for pals. You're connected in the right places, you get the jobs. But you've got to know what the plan of the government is. We see right through it. We're seeing right through this. And I mean, if you do your homework, and we've done the research, we've had 26 years of research. We've got a museum of truth. We've got a library of evidence that has taken us a long time to wait for the right time. Because there's no such thing as, these guys are so transparent. They've got a national democratic revolution that they're planning.
That's right.
Straight out of the Tutu house. Now, what does that mean? You know what that means? We're moving towards socialism and communism. We've got it. Okay, I'm going to tell it the way that it is because that's the way it is. And what else have we got? Radical economic transformation. What is that? That came straight out of the Tutu house, and whoever's pulling their strings. We got 13 Chinese police stations in this country. I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. Imagine if I went to the Prime Minister of Hong Kong, China, and said, hey, I'm a regular here. Do you mind if you open up some South African police stations?
They would just laugh in your face.
We got 400 Cuban doctors that came out here. What do we need Cuban doctors for, and what do we need Chinese policemen to come and monitor the place when we've got 60 murders a day?
Yeah.
On the 28th of April, we sent a letter to the Office of the President from the National Peace Commission and said, please explain. Give us a summary of your findings of the Zondo Commission, number one, no prosecution. Please give us a summary of the findings of your Anti-Corruption Tribunal. Who's the Oversight Committee? We'd like to know. And then also finally, on what basis can you declare a military lockdown, close the economy, destroy the economy, 34 sectors of the economy, business, commerce, industry? How can you justify it on the basis of 60 reported cases? Not even proven cases, Scott.
Yeah.
60 reported because World Health Organization was telling them exactly what to say. All right. And then the third thing that they want to finalize their plan is the expropriation. Before the November 2019 bill that they tried to bulldoze through Parliament, right?
Right.
Is to, initially they started off expropriation of land without compensation. And then they changed it and they said expropriation of everything. You know what that means? Houses, farms, improvements.
Bank accounts.
Well, anything, assets. Right?
Assets, yeah.
So they've changed the focus, but that is where they failed because there's no way that they can expropriate anything until they have what's called a socio-economic impact assessment systems report. You see? So, and it's not, and if they do expropriate, it's not going to affect just whites and minorities. I don't want to talk this color thing, right? Because that's
Right.
the other thing. We're South Africans, Scott.
Yeah.
That's it. We're talking about minorities and the the majority.
The ruling ANC.
Now, they are very, very clear in their national democratic revolution. They love this word revolution and radical economic transformation. It just seems to, do things for them. But at the end of the day, it's going to affect everyone, and including them. We were promised 5 million jobs in in 10 years, in 2009 National Development Plan. That same promise was made in 2019 and 2020. Is that amazing?
Yeah.
So all they did was change the dates and repeat the same thing. But they don't compute. There's no wisdom. It's the 7 pillars of ignorance. You're missing L, as you always say, Scott.
Yeah, the L factor.
So there is no logic. There's no logic. Because you have to understand that to create 5 million jobs, you need 250 billion a year. And that's under good management. And what did we get? 5 million jobs in 10 years? We got junk status and recession. All right.
Right.
And the economy is contracting even more, heading for a depression. Now, the other thing as well is that the private sector, big business, top 100 business, would need 450 billion once of only to be able to create 5 million jobs in the same period of time.
Right.
But that would destroy the provident and the pension funds. But the government, the ANC government, they're already got their eye on 8 trillion rands in pensions. You follow?
Absolutely.
The only sector, Scott, where the development can come from, and this is history, is from the informal sector. All right. The informal sector is the SMME sector, small business, which they're actually planning to destroy.
That's exactly right.
You see, so it doesn't make sense. There's no logic there.
But you just touched on the junk status of the rand, and we know that in March this year, the last of the rating agencies put the rand down to junk, and the timing couldn't have been worse when obviously the lockdown came. So you've got so many different whammies. It's not even a triple whammy. There are probably about 10 different whammies in there that have happened this year, including the corruption involving that 500 billion rand, which is supposed to be meant on combating coronavirus and the PPEs we can talk about all day long. But I think the elephant in the room really is the rand being put down to junk status, because that kind of just kills its integrity, doesn't it?
Well, you see, the thing is, Scott, if only these people could have heeded global warnings, not global warmings, forget about that, that's a different story. I don't believe that people can alter the climate. But at the end of the day, what they have to do is understand that they ignored Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor's for a long time, ever since they took over power. And especially in 2009, when things were starting to see a few cracks, unemployment was rising, crime, inner city decay, failed infrastructure, no service delivery. They still ignored it. The business chambers, I spent a lot of time, local economic development, developing, assisting them on the South Coast Business Chamber. I'm on the KZN Growth Coalition. I'm in the Economic Council. We've tried everything to try and guide them, but they just don't listen.
Right. Now,
they don't listen. And
talking about business, tell us about the South African Christian Chamber of Business that you are one of the leaders in.
I'm the founder chairman for it. I spent 12 years in the business chamber, the South Coast Chamber of Commerce and Industry. 12 years there. I've been self-employed for 40 years, so I'm like a tea bag. The best comes out of me when I'm in hot water.
I love that.
The interesting, you can use it, Scott.
Thank you.
The interesting thing is that I realize we've got a Christian majority. Something's wrong, 80% of the population claim to be Christian, and we've got starving in the land of plenty.
Yeah,
we got the African Muslim Agency, Imtiaz Suleiman. The African Muslim Agency started the Gift of the Givers. So we needed some kind of a God-honoring, kingdom-building unity amongst the church for them to stand together and say there is something wrong. I mean, with the high rates of unemployment, crime, inner city decay, we got 550 squatter camps in KwaZulu-Natal alone. So I developed what was called the Solomon Project.
Yeah, tell us about that.
5 billion rand. Sorry?
Tell us about the Solomon Project.
The Solomon Project as in wisdom, and
Yeah.
Solomon was the one who said, beware. Woe is the nation where the slaves become king. See? Now, this isn't a racial thing. This is a very important thing, because what we've had is that those who promise freedom have themselves become slaves to corruption and iniquity. That's in 2 Peter 2:19.
Right.
So if the church realized that, we were promised freedom, you see. Everyone, if you look at the Freedom Charter of June 1955, everyone was promised equal opportunity, but just another broken promise. So we started the Solomon Project, and that I've even put that in at the Premier's office to say to him, there's a solution. It's to deal with poverty and pollution in 550 squatter camps. I've yet to get a response from the office of the Premier, and I've been on the KZN Growth Coalition for the last 8 years. All right. So it's not a case of a lot of the deals and there's a lot of planning that goes on. And if you're not one of the favorites, and I'm clearly not one of the favorite blue-eyed boys of the ANC. But like I said, it's not about hate. It's just dealing with the leadership.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is that we need to deal with the challenges that we've got, and you can't deny them, Scott.
Yeah. Don't
the
you
church
think
has to do something? The business chambers have to do something. Yeah.
Don't you think, Peter? The problem is it's the process of actually decision making amongst the ANC leadership is so nepotistic, as you said.
Oh, well, but I think that filters right through the public sector, because
Absolutely.
It seems like there's two things. There's two things that it's like fear. They're scared to make a decision, and they're also scared to lose their job, because it's a very, very nice position. It's highly paid with all the perks. So it's sheltered employment. But at the end of the day, now we're starting to see that if there's no socio-economic growth and development, Scott, and you've got no money, and when the money runs out, the people are going to get angry, and they're getting restless.
Yeah, they are.
So that is why we established the Peace Commission.
Yeah.
And that is why I established the South African Christian Chamber of Business was established, because I believe we should target the 80% Christian majority. If you have a look at other parties, and I don't have anything bad to say about the 600 parties that have been registered in this country, but yeah, scary. But you've also got 48 that contested the elections, but the results were predictable. What did they tell you? We knew that the ANC would lose 20 to 30 of their 260 out of 400 seats. And I keep on saying to people, don't form another political party. There's got to be other ways. And those ways it is a solution. And it's the only solution. Because political parties, as long as they control the judiciary and as long as they control the electoral process, people are wasting their time establishing political parties.
Right. Now, Vanessa Parry has asked, and I know we just touched on this, but maybe you can expand a bit on this. She says, why is the church so silent on what's going on?
I think for the reasons I gave earlier. There's more than 190 different church denomination groups. I mean, that's like the United Nations, Scott.
Right.
You know, it's 190 different worldviews, but as Donald Trump said, it's a discussion panel that can't do squat.
Yeah, sounds like the ANC government.
Well, yeah, you know, I think it was all due respect, you know, and I've got a great love for a lot of the people that we've met across, right throughout, from Nongoma to Transkei. You know, we spent a lot of time over the years meeting, building relationships with people and building networks and trying to get them to understand that it's no good just praying about spiritual oneness, as in John 15:17. You've got to start doing something. You've got to start obeying what God is telling us to do.
Right.
Because the Bible is no longer there to translate or debate or interpret. The Bible is there to read, understand it, and obey. Simple as that. It's not an option. It's a command.
Yeah. Now, I just want to address the side chat for a second and people watching.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got about 350 people watching at the moment.
Okay. Great.
And if you just put your questions into the side chat, and I will pose those to Peter during our discussion. And Peter, I just want to, while we're talking about some of the projects that you're on now, like the Solomon Project and like SACOB, and I've actually linked your SACOB webpage to the description below this video, so people can just click on that and have a look at your website. But I just want to, at the very start of this live stream, before I got you on, I played a short video clip which was taken in November last year, where you're outside the Durban High Court, and you're just taking those documents and taking the Durban City Council to court over what happened with the Ark of Compassion. Can you tell us about the Ark of Compassion, what its goals were, what it was achieving, how the Durban City Council came in and just knocked the whole project apart, and what the current status of this whole thing is?
Yeah, sure, Scott. 1986, the Ark Christian Ministries Church was established in Durban at the behest and request of the Durban City Council at that time, 1986. In 1999, the Point Waterfront Development Company was established with Renong and Rockpoint Malaysian investors, and they established a 50-50 partnership with the Durban City Council for the development of the Point Waterfront and the beachfront. Massive project, great commercial, new fish tank, the aquarium, and also planning great residential and commercial operations in there. So they went to the founder, Derek Donation, Pastor Derek Donation. He established that in the perfect. That was a calling. It was a clarion call to godly service. He was preparing 2,700 meals a day.
Wow.
They had more beds, 900 beds, more beds than Addington and McCord Hospital put together. People, well, I mean, you know, he took a lot of criticism, but they never took 1 cent from government or the municipality. That was a calling, and they made a success of it. And they made enough of a success for the City Council and also the Department of Housing at the time, 1999, to say to them, would you be prepared to move? And Derek said yes. That was his mistake. He trusted them. So what happened was the Department of Housing gave 10.865 million to the church, relocation only, to relocate.
Right.
And they did a 2-year accreditation process to prove, because it's public money, they had to prove that they could actually do the job, which they've been doing for a long time. But they still had to prove it, okay? So once they got the accreditation done, the money was released. But the money was released, but immediately put into the Metro Housing account and not into a bank account, and not into the Ark Christian Ministries Church. Wow. 10.865 million was taken by the City Council and put into the Metro Housing account. All right.
Yeah.
As soon as they had that money, they went for eviction. The city council had agreed at that meeting that they would assist to identify, secure, and Dave Pope, who is there, he will stand as a witness for me, because I was at Pat Aikert's estates at the time. And I actually identified the Ark property, which was the Montclair military base, and I secured that. And I sold it to the Ark in November. So they had an alternative to move. But the city council went for an eviction, and they evicted. And on the 17th of May, 2004, they desecrated a place of Christian worship. They destroyed a 900-bed shelter, and they stole 10.865 million from a church. That is when I became angry. In 2005, Derek Donation, the founder, the pastor, he died of a broken heart, a broken spirit. He was totally destroyed. Life's work was totally destroyed because of the city council and their power control. They didn't want a Christian church. They don't want Christian. The manager, Mike Sutcliffe, who's a member of the South African Communist Party, and he was the city manager at the time, and he closed it down. And what he did was to destroy, and that's not unique, because 15 Salvation Army shelters have been closed down in Durban in the same period of time. So are they looking for Christian place of worship shelters? You had 400 Wunga addicts and drug addicts on the street. What about COVID at this time? Why did the city council have to establish tents when you had a place like that for 18 years that was God-honoring, it was doing the work, and it was actually doing a tremendous selfless service to the community of Durban and KwaZulu-Natal? So why close it down? It defies all logic.
Yeah.
But anyway, what happened was that when Derek Donation died in October 2004, the trustees approached me. I'm not a Bible-bashing, pulpit-bending pastor, but I've got a doctorate in theology. It's interesting. See?
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing is that I have a David, a Caleb, a Nehemiah spirit to protect and defend and contend. And you know, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. But you know the interesting thing, I couldn't find a Christian lawyer or advocate out of 80% of the population to back this one.
Wow.
You know that?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Interesting, eh? If this was a Muslim, if a mosque had been closed down, they'd be cleaning the guns.
Yeah.
If the Jews had a synagogue or a place of worship closed down, what do you think the Israelis would have done? I don't think that they'd be quiet. But 80% of the population claim to be Christian. They closed the church down, and I sent letters to more than 150 pastors in Durban. And then I realized something's wrong. I went to the High Court myself on the 25th of November last year.
Right.
In 2018, I went there. It took me 7 years to get into the courts, Scott. 7 years.
Wow.
But I'm not giving up, because when I went in 2018, I got 8 days in court. And I had to wait till the 25th of November last year to do it. And I went there, and they threw me another curveball, because the justice system is designed to protect the system from people like us. You follow?
Yeah.
And because it's a conflict of interest, you can't have a judge who's employed by the government to give an unbiased opinion. I'm the first person that has ever discovered a Bible. When you submit your documents for defense, I compiled those with the help of an advocate.
Right.
And I discovered a Bible. So we need common law. You know, law stands for land, air, and water. Isn't that amazing? And the system is designed to control it and keep people like me out of the court. But I went there twice. And you know what was interesting, Scott, is that Cater Manor, that is where the city council took young children, single people, 13 and 16 years old, and dumped them. They took 416 people. They sent some to Cape Town. They put them into the banks of the Umlaas River in Isipingo at a place called Velvaduct in their RDP housing. And then they just dumped people who needed. not just a bowl of food and a bed, but they needed social, they needed physical, mental, and emotional care to help them. But I went to that court on my own, but I had 250 people from the Ark, mainly African, young people, and they said to the magistrate, if you throw this out of court, we'll close the High Court. And then I realized that these are desperate people.
Yeah.
But what made me establish the South African Christian Chamber of Business and also the National Peace Commission was that I realized that there was no unity in the church. There was no unity in the business community. We needed COVID-19, Scott, because what it's done is to expose the flaws. This was the perfect time. We've been waiting for 28 years, but we needed this. This had to be a season. And it's revealed the absolute levels of corruption, the mismanagement, the lack of Baito Pele people first services and service delivery. We needed it. As bad as it has been for everyone, we needed this because this is the season for change.
So
and there's going to be change.
So what you're saying is there's a silver lining behind this coronavirus. And
yeah, absolutely, Scott. I've got a British passport. I was born here. I'm not going anywhere. There's no place in the world that I would rather go to, that I'm going to.
Well, I think what this lockdown has done is it's brought into focus for a much larger percentage of the majority African population how corrupt the ANC government is.
Yeah, it's exposed their nakedness. It's exposed their flaws, the lack of leadership, the corrupt. But more importantly, Scott, it's actually exposed the absolute the lack of compassion.
Yeah,
this is where I have a problem, and I think that this is one of the most important lessons that have actually come to me, because it's so easy where everyone else is talking about running away and secession and let's go here and let's go there and independence and self-determination. I say forget it. The church needs self-determination. Clause 235 of chapter 14 in the Constitution allows for it. The church needs to be separate from the state. Now, why doesn't the church leaders think about that? And we're already doing that. Forget about self-determination for a small group of people. I'm not interested in ethnic, cultural, whatever. What about the religious? What about the religious factor? And we've got it. We've got the information, and we're already doing it because we need separate church and state. This government is communist shadow government. They already established the CRL Rights Commission in 2015. They established a Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Rights Commission, another commission. And they wanted to establish, they want to regulate and control the church. Can you believe that? Want to regulate and control it? No, I mean, they've absolutely, they've lost it because 80% of the population claim to be Christian. But it's the same thing. People are wearing masks. You know what I mean? Because the government says so. The government says that you've got this, we have this challenge. But the 1989 medical journal says it's no more dangerous than the common cold, which I'm inclined to agree with.
I totally agree with you too.
No, we know what they're doing. We've got enough. Miskovich, and there's been tremendous people, Scott, who have come forward, but they've all been ignored. Just like Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, the global, the global, I mean, your global business confidence index is ignored. They do their own thing. They don't consult with anyone. They make decisions which are generally very, very poor judgment calls at the detriment of the nation.
Well, they've got their noses. They've got their noses so deep in the trough at the moment. They've really. I'm surprised they ever come up for air. And the latest.
The trough is getting very, very. Now it's not even worthwhile fighting over this trough, and that's unfortunately what they're doing because now there's a begging bowl going around to the IMF, which is also disastrous for us. So they're mortgaging the future mortgaging the future for next generation, Scott.
Yeah, are you aware of the bill that Ramaphosa signed into law recently to do with censorship on the internet?
Well, that's just another. He can do what he wants, quite honestly. Because at the end of the day, I've seen it. I've seen it, Scott.
Yeah, what it does in effect, it means that anyone who publishes a video on a Facebook page from South Africa or a YouTube channel based in South Africa has to first get permission from a government agency, and they have to pay money to that agency, and they can wait for weeks for permission to be granted. Basically, they're censoring the whole internet side of things with videos. And if you don't follow their rules, I think there's a fine of 150,000 rand and 8 months behind bars. Now, where my channel is so fortunate, I'm based in Australia, so I'm not in South Africa. So when I'm talking to people like I'm talking to you now, even though you're in South Africa, the actual publication or the publishing happens in Australia. So I'm outside the jurisdiction of their draconian laws that they've brought in to censor real news in South Africa.
But Scott, that's why I love Loving Life, because my brother who actually lived in Melbourne for more than 20 years. My older brother, he died when he was 49, diabetic attack, but he was in Australia and loved it, and I had many opportunities to go there. I've had many opportunities to actually be interviewed, but I just love you because you tell the truth, you shoot from the lip, you tell it the way that it is, and I think that you're a great ambassador for South Africa, and I think now is the time, more than any other time in our history, that we actually need truth, justice, and righteousness. It's a divine intervention, and I really thank Ronell and the team that we're actually working with. We're working with some wonderful people.
Yeah,
we've actually now got 3 million jobs SA.
Yeah,
we've joined hands, the Christian Coalition, the South African Christian Chamber of Business, and the Peace Commission. But we've now joined hands, and this is that's what the Christian Coalition was for, was to establish alliances in times of threat.
Yeah.
I'm a great advocate of Nehemiah, and I mean, you've got to come together in times of danger and threat, and we've got not just a humanitarian crisis, but we've got, we've got a recession, we're in dire straits unless some radical changes are actually made. We're not really interested in what Ramaphosa's got to say anymore. He can say what he wants, because at the end of the day, he's a public servant. He has already shown us what he is.
Yeah.
He's a party loyalist. He's made himself 6 billion. The Minister of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, who's running this disaster management team, we know all about that. We've got all the information. So it's a little bit too late, a little bit too little too late, because we've already got their number. We know what they want to do, Scott.
Yeah.
We also represent Dr. Peter Hammond. You interviewed him the other week.
Yes, yeah, Peter.
He is my greatest mentor. There we are.
Yeah.
I
amazing man.
Frontline Ministries, and I don't know if you can see that. Frontline Ministries and Christian Action, right? He's been a fantastic mentor for me, because he gave a biblical perspective to my life. I was, I've had a very interesting life, but he brought me in line to understand what God wants for this country. That's what we have to do. Right back to, we need to learn from the Battle of Blood River. The 16th of December, 1838. We need to learn from that. You had Cyril Cilliers, he was the dominee, the pastor, and you had General Unris Pretorius. And they stood together, 464 Boers, 64 ox wagons, and they took on the Zulu army.
Yeah.
But it's not about a black on white thing, because that was the spiritual awakening of the Zulu people. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
I mean, the Zulu people today are in Zulu. See Zulu, I mean, people of heaven. And people have given their lives, and people have gone to Christ because of that battle. So it's not a bad thing. But it's made a bad thing because people have got an agenda that turned it into the day of reconciliation. I mean, what a joke.
Yeah.
So what the government has tried to do, because it is got a communist shadow government, they want to divide, they want to confuse. Most importantly, they want to confuse, they want to divide, and they want to destroy. That's it. Because they're still living in this utopian dream, this nirvana, this, I mean, the 1848 Communist Manifesto was produced by an armchair philosopher, Karl Marx. But it's killed more than 360 million people since 1848. This ideology that these people follow, this dream of a, I don't even know what it is, but 160 million people have been killed since 1910. There's got to be something wrong when you have people chasing that.
Yeah.
Those kind of philosophies of man. So Peter Hammond, he's really been fantastic. Christian Library. We got a Kwasiza Bantu every year, Ergo Stegen, and I think that's what South Africa has to do now, is to understand what God wants for this country. Matthew 6:33, seek His kingdom first.
Well, I have to tell you, one of the most amazing things that I've found in the Loving Life channel is the networking. You know, we've the people that we've been able to get in touch with, and some of them, they're beyond coincidence. Things that happen. You know, people that we've talked to, and they know this person and they know that person, and we're able to put people in touch with each other. And, it's been quite extraordinary. And Marlena, who looks after my live streams, she is an absolute gem.
Yeah, she's a diamond.
Yeah, absolute. Now, let's continue with a couple of questions that we've got here for you, Peter. Liberty for Life has asked, with the ANC lockdown, is there any hope for the ANC in the future?
I think that, the ANC, they're struggling as well. They won't fall on their sword. They won't leave quietly because it's power. It's power, and they'll do anything and everything to actually hang on to that power. And that's what they've done. They did exactly the same as Mad Bob Mugabe. They hung on to power for 37 years.
Yeah. Because
they even want to change the elections. We should have municipal elections next year, but they don't want
to delay them.
100%. So I don't think elections are going to happen because they want to bulldoze in their national democratic revolution.
Yeah.
They want to bulldoze in their radical economic transformation, and they want to bulldoze in their expropriation. So what they are planning to do is to just take over all the assets, but more important than that, they want people to protest. They're even paying people like Black Lives Matter. That's not a local thing. They want people to panic. And we need to learn from that, Scott.
Yeah.
Because with a military background, I mean, I was a major in the army at 25. You need the control. There's a lot of people out there. People are motivated by two things: self-interest, promises of free land, electricity, houses and whatever, and fear. And the people living on the farms have got a right to fear. They've been organized acts of terrorism.
Yes.
They've been butchering the people, and it just hasn't been right. And there's been no defense. And the church has been silent on that.
Yeah.
I mean, Galatians 3:28-29. It speaks clearly there's no racial barriers in the kingdom of God or his covenant circle. Where's Tutu, Huddleston, Shikani, and Bussack in that?
Yeah.
Where they had the Truth and Humiliation Commission that went around as a roadshow and circus.
Yeah, yeah.
The guilty people never went to jail. They had a few a few people that were sort of held guilty, but there should have been a lot more people that should have gone to jail from that, because a lot of people were given amnesty. Even with this anti-corruption tribunal, the ANC is now asking for amnesty. Can you believe that? They want immunity. They want immunity from prosecution because they've gone so deep. I've had meetings with the National Prosecuting Authority when they had that xenophobia thing. They flew me to Cape Town, Joburg, and Durban. We attended these meetings to see what we could do after that xenophobia thing, to try and reduce the levels of racism and intolerance to one another and whatever. But the Kathrada Foundation, Nelson Mandela Foundation, they were the main guys that organized that.
Yeah.
And it just became a case of let's drag up the past and let's
blame apartheid.
Comparing the apartheid government. Yeah, I can't deal with these people who are really stuck in a bubble, and we've got to move on. We've got to leave the baggage and we've got to move on, Scott.
Yeah,
Most important.
I want to just touch on the NDR, or National Democratic Revolution, and I'm sure you've seen that 1993 ANC document that was actually penned by Ramaphosa. Now, you bring those into context, and you can see clearly that they've been quite transparent post 1994 about how they're going to bring down the minority groups in South Africa, and how they're going to take South Africa into communism. Can you just give people who perhaps don't have an understanding of the NDR, what are the objectives of the NDR, and why do we say this is where South Africa's going?
It was a result of the COSATU 9th Congress, the NDR. It was a resolution taken at the 9th Congress that was National Democratic Revolution. And it was to accelerate socialism and communism and also tying in with radical economic transformation. These are stable companions, just as expropriation without compensation is. It's a tripart deal. That's what they want. It's phase 1, 2, 3. If it happens all at the same time, then that's it. But it's out in the open. I mean, people know about it. But let me tell you what their objectives are. It clearly says in that NDR document, and this is where they can no longer get out, that we're not a racist government, you see? Because it clearly says there for Africans in particular and blacks in general. Is that amazing?
Yeah.
Right out of Luthuli House.
Yeah.
But surely some pastor or some business person must know about this. And this is where we've had a problem, Scott, is the communication, because people haven't really wanted to listen to the truth. As I say, I'm seeing, I won't use your expression, but because that's plagiarism, and I respect you're an old fart. I'm a senior citizen, but I got negative rants. I've been accused by quite a few people, and even in my own family, of maybe thinking too much and talking too much, especially when the TV's on. But now's the time to switch the TV off and to start doing something serious, because unless the people stand together now, Scott, we know. And fortunately, there were people like myself and a small remnant of other people that were watchmen on the wall. We've been watching you and watching me, but we've got a museum of truth and a library of evidence that it really supports all this. And that's the good thing now, because we're going to drop a bombshell. I'm going to drop a bombshell tonight, so just tell me how much time I've got left, because I don't want to waffle, and I've actually made point by point things of this, and I respect the viewers, and I really welcome them. And we've just had a tremendous, overwhelming support, because it was just based on a simple philosophy that I worked it out. We need 400 decent people, wise and ethical and capable people in government. There's 400 seats in government.
Right.
So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that if we form a council at 28, and then you've got 256 municipalities, you've got a strength of over 7,000 people. But you have to find your leadership now, from wherever they are, business community. And it comes down to IQ, EQ, and SQ. IQ being having knowledge, EQ having emotional maturity, the wisdom of age, because that's what we want now.
Right.
I've just turned 70. So you need the wisdom of age and you need the energy of youth. That's what we need. But we want people who are humble, approachable, available, and teachable. Because there's no more time to just sit back now, Scott, and just wait for things. Maybe we'll see how things happen, whether we move or whatever. There's no more time for that.
I tell you what I'd like you to do.
Sure.
Peter, I'd like you to drop your bombshell right now.
Okay. All right. I've been doing some homework. All right. And with all due respect to all these other people, I want to throw a little bit of a curveball here. Out of all my research over the years, because that's what I do, I've dug deep. Honestly, Scott, it's taken me years and years of writing and really trying to understand what God wants, but most importantly, trying to find out socially, economic, and politically, what does this country need, apart from capable leaders? Now, you see this bill, you see this dollar bill, there it is.
Yep.
Can you see it, right?
Yep.
And everyone talks about the pyramid, even Dave Icke. I met Dave Icke 1993 and 1997. Got great respect for him, right? He's dropped a lot of his other stuff, but
Just
he's
before
been spot on.
Just before you go on with David Icke, I've got to tell you that I can beat your dollar bill. I've got a Zim. I've got a Zim $100 trillion bill.
Yeah, you get a whole barrow full of those just to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on. Yep, about David Icke.
Okay. No, David Icke was being accused a long time ago, and a lot of people who tell the truth. Okay, ambassadors for truth. If you have a look at Socrates, he was the one who said beauty is a short-lived tyranny. Okay, I love Socrates because he also said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. There's only one good, and it's knowledge, and there's only one evil, and that is ignorance.
Right.
And I started to think about this. I started to think about this in the context of leaders and the pillars of ignorance: ideology, corruption, nepotism, incompetence, mismanagement, sloth, laziness, unaccountability. But then we need those 7 pillars of wisdom, and the baseline for that is good judgment, real understanding, use of knowledge, real experience, use of common sense, real insight, your L factor that you joke about, to challenge, and compassion. I spent 16 years in the military, right? I spent 16 years in the military, and because people don't understand me, I tend to come across a little bit sort of parade ground kind of mentality. So I intimidate people.
Everybody in the side chat say you are very knowledgeable and you talk a lot of sense. So I think people fully support you.
Thank you very much. But this, out of all the times that I've been invited to go on to global networks, Scott, God led me to you because I know that your plans to build a time capsule. I'm going to say something tonight that is going to put these people who believe in the rich man's science, chasing vaccinations, when they've ignored poor man's cure.
Right.
I've got a syndicate of doctors in Springfield, and they've got a five-step cure. A 5-step cure, because the science has been ignored. They want to cure the symptoms. They want to run around looking for a vaccination. All right?
Yep.
And instead of treating the disease. But if we know that COVID-19 is not no more dangerous than a common cold, then why is everyone running around trying to get a cure for that?
Exactly.
Right. Because we've got commercial capture of medical and health departments. We've got deprivation of low-cost and affordable medical care. The importance of understanding why alternatives are blocked is something that should be put right in the camp of this cabinet of 28 ministers. What is the overview of the poor man's cures evidence-based medicine? We've got evidence-based medicines at a low cost. And forget about hydrochloroquine and chloroquine. Forget about that. That's been around for 42 years, approved by the World Health Organization to cure malaria and a common cold. But it's this pandemic has destroyed the economy. It's a pandemic that's promoted by mainstream media and monopolies.
Yes.
Big pharma, big bucks,
Yes.
right? And also it's a pandemic promoted by corrupt governments. But now I'm going to drop the bombshell. If we know that COVID-19 is just a hoax, okay? But there's still a lot of people wearing masks, and a lot of people don't agree with it. And I'd say to people, look, don't put anything on your hands, even suntan oil. Don't put anything on your body that you're not prepared to, that you can't drink. That's a fact.
Right.
If you have a look at all the tropical islands, they never had skin cancer. It started developing in Australia when they bring out all these super blocks, suntan lotions. You should put coconut oil on your body. That's what I did in Thailand. So you need to learn those things. Don't drink anything or put anything on your skin that you're not prepared to eat or drink. And certainly not sanitizer. All right. But now I want to give you a little bit of, and this is biblical. This came from the Bible. If you take the Gideon Bible, why do they only give you the New Testament and they give you the Psalms? Because the people don't really want you to know about the Old Testament. I've got people in my own family who are elders in churches. And the average church person, and I want these Christians out there to hear exactly what I'm going to say. Because this information that I'm going to tell you tonight is based on research, but it's also based on biblical scripture. All right?
Right.
Make a mockery of this whole lot. Because think about this. I was in the army. I was always tough. I used to go to funerals. I didn't cry. My bladder never moved up to my eyeballs. I was seen as a tough guy. And, your bladder should move up to your eyeballs because that's exactly what should happen. But then I understood there must be a disconnect between your brain and your heart. But I'm not a doctor. I got a doctorate in theology, but I'm not a medical doctor. But I tell you what, I want the doctors to contact me now after the show. Right. I want the Christian leaders to contact me. Because what I'm going to tell you is that while they've all been chasing, think about this one. What if these guys, the farmers, the farmer care, the big bucks, the people who fund all these, all the vaccines and the research, and they do that. What if that is exactly what they wanted to do in the first place, is to dumb you down, keep you ignorant. Dumb you down, keep you ignorant, keep you poor, and keep you dependent on a communist government. We know Agenda 2030 is exactly about communism.
Right.
It's in Australia. Peter Dutton, I'm very disappointed in him that he's not supporting the farmers. And here's Israel, that are already starting to vaccinate their own people. Right. Now, I'll tell you something. There's in your body, in your brain, you've got a frequency, and in your heart, you've got a frequency. But when I went to the High Court on my own, and when I see the people on the street, when I see 550 people 550 squatter camps in KwaZulu-Natal, and the government does nothing about it. There's a lack of compassion.
Right.
So we've lost that ability, that emotion. We've lost that love. We've lost that compassion. We've lost the ability to care. When we see the 60 murders a day in South Africa, and it doesn't even raise, and it doesn't even mean anything to anyone, because we become desensitized. Right.
Right.
I want doctors to contact me over what I'm going to say now. We've got in our body a pineal gland, right?
Right.
It's a pineal, Pineal. Anyone can Google it. Now, I want to follow up after this, because this is where we're going to take this. And we're going to hold these people accountable, Scott. Because this pineal gland it produces spiritual molecule called melatonin. That gives us the ability to think and be creative and gives us wisdom.
Right.
It allows us to dream. This is very important, and I want the people listening to this to give them goosebumps. Because when we started the Peace Commission, we have got a common denominator with peace. We are called to be peacemakers, Christians. Matthew 5:9. So we have to, and if you have Muslims, they greet you in the name of peace. They've even got Dar es Salaam, the house of peace.
Well, that's where I was born.
Right. Well, isn't that amazing, eh? we must still talk about that, Scott. That's our secret. All right. But let's look at the Hindus. We got 4 major groups in this country, religious groups. The Christians must be peacemakers, called to be peacemakers. That's why we established the Peace Commission. What about the Hindus? Largest not here, but overseas, all right, India and other countries. But we have the largest population of Indians in this country, and there's a lot of Hindu people. But they talk about Shanti. Shanti is peace. When the Jews greet you, they greet you in the name of peace. Shalom. Not so.
Yeah.
So there was the denominator for that. But with this pineal gland, it connects to our spirit. Okay. Now, the reason why we called it the committee, or let's say the Council of 28, the government needs a voice. You need the voice of truth, wisdom, and reason, because there isn't one. The church is silent. Business chambers are silent.
Right.
So that's why we created a platform, a voice of public opinion, which is a peace commission that is not controlled by the United Nations, but is established by people in this country. People of all race groups and people of all religious groups. We just happen to take the lead. All right. This was given to me by God.
Right.
I want Christians to go to their Bibles. The Bible doesn't start at Matthew. It starts at Genesis. And that's why big government, even Gideons, they give away Bibles that start New Testament and Psalms. Because the communists, those people in power, those people there, right? Those guys, they don't want people to have knowledge. They want to keep you dumb.
Right.
Right? Now, this pineal gland also produces a thought process. It's the eye of Horus. It's like a pine cone. That's why they call it the pineal gland. It's the third eye. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
The little spot on a Hindu's forehead. When you kiss somebody on the forehead, that's a very, very emotional thing. That act of love. Because of this pineal gland. It's the only thing in the body that no one seems to be talking about, right? And the pineal gland is essential for spiritual development. It gives you that compassion. It gives you that care. It's physical and mental, emotional, and spiritual health. If your frequency is thrown out by 4G, 5G, or even any other, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Any other kind of interference, it throws that right out. It throws your balance out, and it actually destroys your health. Now, that's what's happening right now in this country. And that's what's happening around the world, because what they're trying to do is to dumb you down. And they want to destroy the pineal gland.
So if they destroy the pineal gland, they destroy the ability to
thinking, creativity.
Yeah.
They can drag you around with face masks. Now this is in the book of Exodus 28. All right. Because it speaks of the breastplate of judgment, and it speaks of the spirit of wisdom.
Right.
This is profound, Scott. This is very profound. Because it interferes with our frequency. All these, they use chemicals and they use frequencies to destroy this. Its mind enslavement is the main aim. All right. The pineal gland is destroyed by fluoride. I want everyone here who's at home, obviously, go to your toothpaste. Why do they have a warning on your toothpaste? Why do they have a warning on your toothpaste that you can't swallow your toothpaste?
Because of
and
fluoride.
that if you do swallow it, because of the fluoride, it calcifies the pineal gland. Right? Now, the reason I'm dropping this bombshell tonight is that here's a time capsule for you. Because I'm the first. I don't believe in patents. I don't believe in copyrights. I've written 5 books. I've got 5. I had patents. I designed and developed the first Coca-Cola trolleys, and I started Car Watch and Car Guard on Durban's beachfront. So everything I do is needs and purpose driven. But this came straight out of the Bible, Exodus 28. It talks about the spirit of wisdom. Now, when we talk about the 7 pillars of ignorance and the 7 pillars of wisdom, we come back to we need capable leaders with wisdom. What's happening to the people? They're getting a disconnect between their brains and their heart. And what connects them is the pineal gland. That eye at the top of that, I disagree now. I don't believe it's a sign of the New World Order and the Masons and the Jesuits. I believe that is their target, is to keep people dumb.
Right.
Right.
Where is
the
pineal gland located? I've heard of it, but I'm not sure.
The dead center of the brain. The dead center of the brain.
Right.
Right. Now, the enemy want to destroy your health. That's the best way to do it. I spearfish for South Africa. I played underwater hockey.
Right.
So I've got salt water in my DNA.
Right.
Now, I know, and it's very, very sensitive to light. Even the mark on the front of the Hindu ladies that refers to the pineal gland. It goes right back to Egypt. It goes right back to Egyptian times. It goes back to a long way back in history. Because the pineal gland is the most important part of our body. Consciousness.
Right.
You talk about the Holy Spirit. It's all related to spiritual and scripture. But when you have a disconnect, when you don't feel emotion or you don't feel any kind of, you desensitize all these movies or whatever. But when you kill that pineal gland with fluoride, why do they put it in the water? Why do they put it in the toothpaste? Why are they destroying it with 5G and 4G? It throws us out of balance. It even affects our sleep pattern. I'd like the experts to contact me through you, Scott, and let's start really doing some kind of exercise and holding these governments accountable. Why have they been putting fluoride into the water systems in Africa for so long?
Well, they do it in Australia too.
Of course they do. It affects your IQ. IQ is knowledge.
Right.
We are all born with wisdom. But if your pineal gland is calcified, you've got a problem. Your IQ is knowledge that you gain in your journey of life. Your wisdom is what you are born with. And your SQ is spiritual. And if you don't have a functional pineal gland, then you'll wear a mask all day long and you'll believe what the media tell you. I think that the world, and I'm talking about the church, has got to rise up now. and the business community because of the damage to the economy. And we've got to take a firm stand, Scott, because today, the 11th of August, I believe it's a life changer for this country. And this is a gift from God.
Right.
And only through research, only through understanding what God wants. And I said, well, why aren't they given? Why have they suddenly believe that the Old Testament has got no relative? It's got no relation. But we have to go back to that. Every single law in the country was based on the 10 Commandments. But I believe that the people in power and those who want control of the people's minds, they did not want people to go to Exodus 28 to learn about that spirit of wisdom and also the breastplate of judgment, because the judgment is coming now. It's going to happen.
I have to say to you that there've been, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and there've been several people who've been talking along a similar line, but without referring to the pineal gland. What they've been saying is these vaccines, the stuff they put in there, and this is why they want a global vaccine for the coronavirus, because that way they can bring down the fertility of people because of the stuff they put in there, and that way they can lower the population. And they can also impact, and this is what you're talking about, the actual spiritual consciousness of people. Actually impact on that by actually changing the way their brains work. And these are the frightening things about the vaccines as well.
Well, you see, but let's just make it easy for people to understand. If we have a frequency, and I've always thought to myself, there's something wrong with me because I don't cry at funerals. You know, my bladder doesn't move up to my eyes, and then I think to myself, well, there's something wrong. There's a disconnect between my brain and my heart.
Yeah.
You follow? And then I started thinking about this, and what is the difference between, why do we have a problem in government? Why don't we have the 7 pillars of ignorance, and we need the 7 pillars of wisdom, but where do we find capable people? Where do we find wise people? Well-informed, creative people, because the governments want to dumb you down, and they want to keep you poor, and they want to keep you dependent. So it's all about control. But what could be so great to control you is through your mind, by calcifying your pineal gland.
Don't you think it's actually higher up than just the government? Don't you think it's this new world order that are behind all this? You know, you look at...
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same people that control, we know about the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the same things. Those people who have got something to gain. They want to control the banks. They want to they want to turn us into a cashless society. They want artificial intelligence. You follow? Yeah. But to get artificial intelligence, you still need people. You know, but you need those people in government. You don't want useful idiots. Yeah. You want to be able to, governments that are corrupt, governments that will steal from the poor in a heartbeat.
Now, I'm going to appeal to doctors who are watching. We've got close to 450 people watching at the moment. I want to appeal to doctors who are watching to please just send me an email if you'd like to contact Peter to discuss this whole subject, and let's expand this and see where it takes us. If one of the moderators could just drop my email address into the side chat, and please guys just send me an email, and I will certainly forward your email to Peter so that you can have a chat. All right, so is there anything else with the bombshell that you want to discuss, Peter?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that it's sort of food for thought. But
absolutely.
It makes sense, and it's constructive. And it also makes sense that, you know, why would people want to keep you, why shouldn't you have a spirit of wisdom? Why shouldn't you have, you know, this kind of free thinking and creativity and also having Holy Spirit led, you know? I think that there's something missing in society, and there's something missing in our lives. And that's the ability to have compassion. And I started going deep into that when I couldn't get any support for the ARC matter. And there's something people can drive past. They don't really care too much, especially people in government. And that's why I said it's very clear now, Scott, that we need people in government that have got IQ, EQ, and SQ. Because the Bible is clear. The Bible is clear on having civil government. To have civil government has got absolutely no powers. They've got very little jurisdiction. They must serve. That's what they're called to do. They are called to serve the people, protect and defend. And it's clear, it's biblical as well. There are 10 principles, and I'd like the people as well to please come into the chamber, because there's 10 basic principles for peace and freedom. We've got them. I'm not going to go into them tonight. I can quote them, but it doesn't really matter. I don't want to take up any more time. But what I'd like to say is that we need that museum of truth. We need that library of evidence. We want people to be open. And that's what we've got, Scott. We've got an open door.
Yeah.
Come and talk to us. You know what I mean? We're not right all the time, but I promise you something. With the kind of network that we've got, I've got 8,500 telephone numbers on my phone. And it's not to impress you, but you know yourself. You just said yourself. It's about networking.
Yeah.
Build coalitions. Forget about fraternals. Fraternals mean brotherhood. But these people are working in little silos. They believe, they lean on their own understanding, instead of, getting a lot more out of it by sharing knowledge, sharing information.
I totally agree with you.
Let's do something for the country, you know what I mean? Let's stand together. Forget about, put your baggage aside. Leave it at the door. Leave your political parties at the door. We've got a plan. We've got a very, very good plan for putting capable and ethical people into government.
Yeah.
And we're not even considering these clowns in government, really. These are public servants. They've lost their right, they've lost the ability, and they've lost the moral authority to hold power. And if they had any shame, they'd fall on their own sword.
Absolutely.
They'd leave. There's no grace.
I have to tell you that the side chat is in meltdown. And that's a good thing.
I like
Petrus says, if we have all the knowledge and smart people in South Africa, why does everyone sit still with the ANC problem in 2020? And then Hamletter says, how do we opt out of the New World Order and the mandatory vaccines? And Marlena says, now I'm going to do this, guys. Okay, so Brian says, would it be possible for Scott to edit the stream just with this info of the last 5 minutes on the pineal gland story? So what I'm going to do is after we've finished this live stream, I'm going to put up a short video which will have the bombshell in it. And I'll put that up as a separate video with a reference to this video so people can go and have a look at that separately rather than have to listen to 2 hours of us chatting away and then having to wait for that pineal story.
Scott, I've actually got a video on it. People can Google it, the pineal gland. But I will send it through to you through Molina.
Fantastic.
I think it's very, very, very important, but it must be read in conjunction with Exodus 28.
Yeah.
That's why we have established the Council of 28.
Yeah.
I was inspired by that, and I've been holding this back for the right time. I'm a very patient man.
Well,
no, I tell you why, Scott, I promise you.
Yeah.
I needed the right platform. I don't want people to commercialize this.
Yeah.
This is from God. This is from God. This is 28 years. Let me just give you just quickly why we chose the number 28. Okay. It's 28 years after the referendum. Okay. That'll make some kind of sense. 28 years after the referendum that we had that gave the ANC power. Right. The Exodus 28 was extremely important because of that same reference. Also, if we have a look at, we need to be the godly are as bold as lions. That's Proverbs 28. You see, so we keep on going back to these kind of things that are quite relevant. They're relevant to us, and they're also important, because that 28, when we started, we had 7 whites, 7 Indian, 7 African, and 7 Khoisan or colored.
Right.
And that we launched on the 28th of October 2019, at the same time that the government was trying to bulldoze their expropriation bill through Parliament. So the 28 is very relevant. And also it's 28 years ago that the same government, not the same government, but the same South African government actually launched a similar United Nations Peace Commission. Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely.
So it's exactly 28 years later, Scott.
Yeah.
So, and that was totally run and managed by the previous government when they handed over power. Right. 28 years, and the United Nations control it. This time, we don't want United Nations in the country. We don't want Chinese police stations.
And we don't want Open Society Foundation either.
Scott, we don't want military intervention in this country.
Yeah.
We've got to deal with our own problems. That's why I said we need peaceful demonstrations, not protests, because the government's waiting for an excuse.
Well, you know
to bring in military intervention.
You know that Open Society Foundation NGOs are all over South Africa, and they're playing a huge role in government policy. They've basically got 100%. The ANC under their belt. Now,
100%. Well, that Open Society actually give them all their policies. Open Society.
Now, Salmina's asked, how do you take fluoride out of water? I guess the simplest way is to buy bottled water that's spring water, isn't it?
No, the best way to take it out is to get rid of the government that's supplying it.
Right.
And go to anyone. And I want the people here. Go to your toothpaste. How can you... why can't you swallow something that you can brush your teeth with? Because fluoride is known to calcify that gland.
Yeah.
It's to dumb you down.
Fluoride itself as a chemical, isn't that a byproduct of something which is they couldn't find a use for, and it's actually not it's not a nice drug or chemical.
I'm not a chemical engineer. I'm mechanical and electrical, but look, it doesn't take rocket science to work it out. The bottom line, the stuff that they're putting into vaccinations, you shouldn't do that.
But fetuses of babies and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's all sorts of extracts, Scott, and it's terrible. But the most important reason why you shouldn't be taking that microchip as well, it's not biblical. Although we're advised, it is in Revelations 13 and 12 that we cannot take the mark of the beast as God-fearing people. But there's another reason, because we know how it was made. It was made by IBM, it was made by Motorola, and it was made by big business.
Yeah. Right
back in 1986. And we know the people. We're busy talking to the people that made it. Born again Christian, he's got regrets about what he did, but he wasn't born again at that time. Yeah, we've all got a testimony. I mean, I had my Springbok colours for drinking. I'm no Boy Scout. We've all got a testimony, but when you serve God, decide today who you serve. Joshua 24:15.
Right.
So you can't sit on the fence anymore. You've got to take a decision, and you've got to move forward. So that fluoride has been in the system for so long, and it does calcify that gland.
That's shocking. Now, I'm going to post some questions to you that people have raised.
Okay.
Suck My Socks has got another. He's got another comment to make.
Just love that guy.
He says,
"You should joke about smoking your socks." Yeah, but
you should see some of the usernames people use, but I've got to say the name so that they know that I'm using their question. He says, people could do a lot worse than listen to what Peter says. He has a full-on, very knowledgeable handle on things. Now, Bruce has said, I agree with Dr. Munns. What does he believe the solution is? Because living under the ANC madness cannot go on. So what are your thoughts on that, Peter?
Well, I'll tell you what we're doing is that we've already worked it out. We're going into 256 municipalities. These are public servants. They have to be accountable. We're not invoking the 1215 Magna Carta. Forget about that. This is a different space. We've got our own problems here. But what has to be, it has to be in context. It has to be relevant to what we've got. We are using exactly the same weapons, not weapons, but we're using what the government promised us. Baitopele promises, 11 of them. The first one is consultation. There's service delivery. You have to, administration must be an open book.
Right.
So if we have 28 people going into 256 municipalities, but the people must be leaders. They must have the IQ, EQ, and SQ. Right. These can't be popular people, Scott. This is where they make a problem. You don't want pastors and teachers in government again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Army can't march on an empty stomach. Just likewise, you need your leadership. You need your generals. So the first thing that we're doing, bring your gladiators. We challenge South Africans, whoever they are. They can be in political parties, but leave their manifestos at the door. We're not interested in that. There's some very, very good people in Parliament. There's some very, very good people. But if you're concerned about the future of the country, bring your leaders to us. Let's work together.
Right.
We've got an army already. We've already got 3 million unemployed people. I've eaten a lot of goat meat between Ngoma and Transkei. We've got 550 squatter camps. I've got a fantastic relationship with King's Willatini. We're working with the Royal House of Monarchs. The people are coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it just can't come early enough. That's the trouble, I guess.
No, it's no, Scott, I'll tell you what. This is a covenant Christian country. I don't believe that I've spent 28 years of research for nothing.
Right.
I don't believe, I really, and I want to say that with all due respect to all the people out of there, you know, that just want to pack their bongos and leave. You've got to stay here. You've got to stay here, because why run away from 30 cabinet ministers? Don't go to Rania. Don't go and form another secession plan. Stand together. Stand together.
Well, Eendracht maakt macht. Now, Bruce Bastos has said, would Dr. Munns consider starting a Christian army? Onward Christian soldiers. He says in brackets.
Well, you know, it's biblical. It's biblical, but there are actually 10 pillars for peace and freedom. You can have a militia. In fact, you should have a militia. But the militia is there to bear arms. The biggest problem that you've got is genocide. Gun controls precedes genocide. Okay, we know that. As soon as the government want to take gun controls, that's just before genocide. We've seen it in Rwanda. We saw it in Zimbabwe. We've seen it all over.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Like, everyone has the rights. It's the Second Amendment in America to bear arms, the right to bear arms. The first one is right to freedom of religion. Okay. So what we have to do is understand that there are biblical commands. We can raise an army, but you have to be able to defend your family, defend your community, and the right to bear arms and defend yourself. What has to happen is that we are going to be going into the police stations, because there's a lot of those policemen and teachers and those nurses that are very, very concerned about having their pensions stolen by this present government. Yeah. And they're not going to bear arms against citizens. So we're going out there peaceful. We don't want rubber bullets. I'm allergic to pain, all right? But we don't have to wear our shoes out doing protests. What you've got to do is get organized first. Get united. Like I said, bring your gladiators, bring your leaders, bring them to the table. Let's sit around the table. Let's agree on issues instead of debating issues. And people of all races and all ethnic groups and all cultural and religious groups. It's our country. It's time to take it back. Time to reclaim surrendered ground. And we've only got one leader, it's Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
There's no power struggles here. Mark 8:34. Pick up the cross and follow him. We've even got a living cross crusade for Christians. And I'm talking about devout Christians, people who believe that there is only one leader. Because the bottom line here is that this isn't a family business. This is kingdom business. And we're told to build his kingdom church. It's Matthew 16:18. And we're also told to build his kingdom, Daniel 2:44. So people, go back to your Bibles, go back, return to the Word of God, return to the law of God. And I'm not as I say, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a Bible bashing, pulpit bending pastor. I respect all people, all races, all cultures, and we've got a common enemy. And the enemy is inside the gates. The enemy is inside the city walls. So it's time for action.
And we all have the ability to have a personal relationship with God. And that's something we've got to build.
Absolutely. Freedom of religion. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
These people want to take away not only your freedom of speech, like Ramaphosa is proposing now. Is he joking? Who is he? I mean, we've gone through that whole hoops and jumping through all sorts of things. The government has got to show us what authority they have. You have to have a right. You have to have the ability, number one. I mean, we'd like to have an IQ, EQ, and SQ test on these guys.
Absolutely.
And that's not racist, but let's do that. We've got scorecards.
It's competency.
No, we've got scorecards. We've got scorecards, Scott.
Yeah.
But we want scorecards on city managers and mayors.
Yeah.
That's why we want 28 people. Go out there. Go out there and hold these guys, city manager, local economic development guys, and also the mayors. Let's do a lifestyle audit on them.
Yeah.
It's got to be an open book. It's Bato Pele principles. It's Bato Pele principle time now. So we know what God wants, but then we also need to understand the social, economic, and political needs. Because you've got to marry the two. You've got to have practical. Can't all be scriptural. It can't all be a biblical perspective. Because a lot of things have changed in 4,500 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said before, you don't need a camel to get, or a donkey to get to Jerusalem. We got social media. We got this fantastic kind of technology. But let's use it. Let's use it. You know what I mean? Let's use it for the benefit of the country and let the honor and glory go to God. You know?
Absolutely. Now I've got a suggestion, Peter.
Sure.
On this channel we have a resident doctor. His name is Dr. Philippe van Velbergen, and he's actually a top medical doctor in the UK. He's got rooms in, I think it's Harley Street in London, the top medical establishment.
Okay.
You know, he's a top medical doctor. Lovely guy. He can talk the hind legs off a horse, but he knows his stuff. And I'm wondering if we couldn't organize, and I'm just going to ask Marlene if we can perhaps organize later this month an evening where your bombshell is discussed from a medical perspective with Philippe about the pineal gland, you know, all the whole nuts and bolts, because that way, I mean, we would get a medical perspective on what you're talking about from a biblical perspective.
Yeah, it's spiritual. That's where we're saying. That's where. I mean, how do we get this relationship going? It's spiritual. Everyone talks about the Holy Spirit, but that is where we get our creativity. We get our wisdom from. We get our ideas. We get all that. But if you've got people with other interest groups and all they want to do is calcify it, that means it's taking away all freedom of thought.
Right.
And that's where the problem is coming in. And I think that those people who we're seeing now that just do what the government says, instead of saying, these are public servants. they've got no jurisdiction.
Exactly.
The Bible makes it very clear on how much jurisdiction they've got. So how suddenly do they have all this amazing power when we've just got to invoke the 11 Baitopele principles nationally, and every single one of these people would not be able to do a single thing about it?
Yeah.
Forget about telling us that we're going to go to jail, and we got lawyers that would keep us out of jail. We got advocates, so we need an advocate. We need an army of lawyers. It's security now as well. I've got no fear of anything. That's why I chose tonight to share that with you for your capsule, because
Fantastic.
This is a very, very interesting journey, Scott.
Yeah.
But it's a gift to this country and possibly the world.
Yeah.
Because if we can work on this, I think it will bring back that compassion, that care, and it'll bring back the kind of love that we need for our fellow man.
Right.
Because, there would be no wars if women are normally very good, not good in terms of battle, not really, they're very, very strong in a lot of areas. But also there would be no wars, because if we learn to love our children more than we have been taught to hate our enemies, that is the problem with this alpha male, chauvinistic, hedonistic, and need for control and power.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to tie up another live stream with you with Philippe. I'll speak to Philippe. He's a good friend of mine. And it'll probably have to be, Marlena says we're fully booked until the last week of August. So now I know the 23rd, 27th, and 29th I've got live streams set up.
Okay.
Now, I'm just thinking, Marlene, is the 30th of August free? Perhaps we could tie in that day. Yeah, they would make a fantastic stream, Philippe and Peter.
And I'll send you some other, anyone who, please feel free to contact me. We're working with sophists. We've got a syndicate of doctors, actually Hindu in Durban, and they don't know about this. But they have got that 5-step cure to this 5 steps of poor man. They call it 5 steps of poor man's cure for COVID.
Right.
So we've got access to some good people, Scott. But we're relying on you. This is a global thing, and I think that when this travels, it's going to make a big difference in the world, because it's going to get people to think.
Okay.
Because I think we've reached a stage where, never underestimate the predictability of stupidity, and we need a vaccine for that.
Okay, now Marlena says that the 30th is a Sunday night and available. So can you chalk in the 30th at 8 p.m.? And what I'll do is I will contact Philippe, because we've got a couple of weeks, and I'll ask Philippe to look up the subject and get his facts together, and we can have a discussion. Because the thing that I find very, very interesting and so pertinent, I mean, this sounds like a mad conspiracy theory, but I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I tell you why. Because the whole spiritual aspect of us comes from that pineal gland. Now, if you can destroy that by using chemicals, then people don't have a desire to be spiritual. They lose that and they become slaves to the system.
100%. That's exactly it. So I don't believe that star or that eye, the third eye, because your pineal gland is known as your third eye.
Yeah.
It's your higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that David Icke believes that's the 1% at the top, and that is the eye of the New World Order. No. Right. That is the target of the New World Order, is to destroy the pineal gland.
All right. So, guys, everybody listening tonight, 30th of August, we're going to have this discussion. It's not going to be a debate. It's going to be a discussion about the pineal gland. And we'll have Philippe, who's a top medical doctor, who will have done his research, and we will have Peter giving his views on the whole thing, the biblical side.
Yeah. Exodus 28.
Exodus 28, yeah. Okay.
Spirit of wisdom, and a breastplate of judgment.
Great. All right. Now, if there are no further questions, guys, I'm going to ask Peter to just give us a closing statement, or just express what you'd like, a message you'd like to get out to people. Perhaps it's about how we can best handle what's going on in South Africa, but I'll leave that totally up to you, Peter. And this is for Peter, for people who are watching the live stream now. There are about 350 here watching. And for those who watch it later, we'll probably have 3,000 or 4,000 who will have watched it by the end of the day. Over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks. Scott, I really want to thank you so much for your commitment and your, I think it's like a burning desire for truth. And I think that there's a golden thread. We share that.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there, but we need to find those remnant. There's a lot more people than we even know. There's a lot of people that are scared. There's a lot of people that don't know. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of denial. People are confused. So we needed to create a platform or a gateway where people can share ideas. But it's got to be constructive. It's got to be not subjective. It's got to be objective. We've got a plan already, which is good. So at least we've got a strategy moving forward. That has taken 28 years, because we've just really understood, number one, what does God want? So that's number one. And the second thing is, what does the country need? And then we've also worked out a strategy and an action plan to deal with it. And I'm just inspired by the number of people that have come in. Please go into our website. This isn't just about, there's exciting things that are happening, Scott, that we will share with you. Not tonight, but plenty of things. And we encourage people from all races and all groups and religious groups to come to this. Join the chamber. Join the National Peace Commission. Get organized. 256 municipalities, 4,300 wards. We've got an army of 7,000 leaders, IQ, EQ, and SQ. That's unbeatable. And then we've got the starving people and the unemployed people. And we've already got 3 million people. You've spoken with Ronell.
Right.
We've joined at the hip, and we're going to take it forward. So we need the brains trust. You need that army. You need the security. And by telling you this as well about this little bombshell, that's already given us security, because we're the first out with it.
Right.
And I like that.
I just have to say that when you talked about Ronell, she's got an amazing young 20-year-old son called Liam. And I had him on a live stream.
And her father. I saw that, Scott.
Yeah, and wow.
Those people. We want them. That's where we need the wisdom of age.
Yeah.
But the energy of youth. And also very, very highly skilled and gifted and committed, and that kind of talent and experience can be used for great purposes in this country.
Right. Now, I've just put SACOB's website address in the side chat. It's also below this video in the description, but some people prefer to go through the side chat. Is your email address in there? Can people contact you directly through that website?
Yeah, they can contact me. There is one there. We've got a central admin as well, but you can contact me on munnspeter@webmail.co.za.
Okay, let me just type that in. Munnspeter.
My name backwards.
Yeah, at
webmail.co.za.
And that's one word, Munnspeter.
Yeah, all lowercase, no stops.
Okay, I'll just repeat that. Munnspeter, one word, at webmail.co.za.
Correct.
Okay, there we go. I've just put that in the side chat. All right. Now, Peter, I'm going to ask you to close this live stream in a prayer, but before you do, I just want to say some thank yous. Firstly, thank yous to all the moderators who've been keeping an eye on the side chat. Really appreciate the good work that you guys do. Thank you to everybody who's joined us this evening and those who will watch this video later. I think that Peter's raised a very, very interesting bombshell, which we're going to unpack on the 30th of August. I'm sure Philippe will be able to make that day. And finally, I'd just like to thank our guest, Peter. Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure, sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. And I look forward to seeing you again on the 30th of August so we can really expand on this whole subject regarding the pineal gland.
It would be a pleasure, Scott.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to you, Peter, to close us in prayer.
I've always said that it's a fivefold ministry and everyone's been called to do their particular role, in that ministry. And, if I look at Dr. Peter Hammond, we share the same name, Dr. Christopher, Peter Christopher Hammond, and we share the same middle name.
Wow.
But I've only got one quick prayer for everyone, otherwise I could carry on all night. And it's the serenity prayer. And we need the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. We need the courage right now and the boldness to change the things that we can. And we need that wisdom and relevant tonight to know the difference. And Scott, that's what I have to say, and blessings and warmest regards to you, your great team, and also your need for truth, justice, and righteousness. And we want restorative justice in this country, Leviticus 6:1-7. We want to hold those accountable, but we want to make them pay. It's not revenge, but I think that this country needs that peace of mind, because it's an insult to our intelligence, it's offensive to our senses, that you can have such a small group of people that have this insatiable need for greed and lust for power, and no one has done anything about it until now.
Right.
Blessings to you and your wonderful station. And this is a clarion call to godly service, Scott, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Stay blessed.
God bless.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I'm going to shut down this live stream. Thank you so much for joining us, and everybody, please take care. And tomorrow night we have, another live stream at 8 p.m. and I hope to see you